Alright, so here we are, 8th turn of Tyre. We started went through the planning phase for the turn. We see the mole has actually extended further, and it is now in range to start providing some archery support, I believe. What do we got? They can go out to 3 hexes. Yeah, you can see you got some numbers there, so like Royal Archers and such not. We'll be able to do some damage on the fire combat results table. So there's some value to where the mole is now. I can put a tower there and start shooting. But that's only during the assault phase that it has any effect. And there are no troops here. There's no risk there. Alright, let's talk about what the setup was. So I built another catapult because I believe I'm kind of weaker in those, and the battering rams are more effective and have a more limited area that they can really hit. Just a couple of spaces over there and then that long wall there. The deployment, and I've got a couple catapults I'm holding in reserve here actually. The deployment that I have is affected what the Tyrian catapults we're going to set up. Now, the problem here is the Tyrians can't defend the whole wall anymore. Before, they felt like they could defend things, put a couple things at the choke point, and then maybe protect this side against an attack here, or I could have set things up to protect against an attack there, based on what the Macedonians placed. But now I got to protect everything, because Macedonians have a powerful fleet on both sides. There's nothing I can do about it. Might be a reason to actually withhold from trying to push against the Macedonian fleet if it's not moving forward, but eventually the Tyrian fleet gets wrecked. So these battering rams, the intention obviously was to head down here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can cover protecting this area and over here. The only thing I can't protect is there's like 1 hex there. So there's 1 hex I'm not going to be able to shoot at. And honestly, I don't really want to go through getting hit with, let's see if I can find it, the counter bombardment table, because there's a decent chance that it's going to wreck my siege engine and or my ship, and that will be bad. The catapults, I'm not quite sure what I intended to do with them, but once the Tyrian's placed, they're protecting this wall segment here. Now this over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, is actually attackable from these coastal areas here and is not protected. So I might be sending some battering rams or drills or whatever to try to smack down that area. I wasn't expecting to see that open. The other thing, well, it's going to be hard to make an attack in here, but over here, and I did some wall repair, added somewhere some more boulders. I think I threw 2 boulders down. I don't know where the second one. Oh, the second one was near that wall. The wall repair didn't work, and it's looking somewhat interesting to maybe smack up this wall a little bit. I don't remember. I think if the wall collapses, if there's troops on it, that's bad for them. I'm not sure. I have to look that up. Anyway, as far as I'm concerned, the Tyrians basically can't intervene. As long as I've got some defensive ships, a few triremes or whatever, available to cope with and outnumber the Tyrian fleet, there's not much I can do. And as we move the boats out, we've split into basically 3 groups. One group coming from both sides, some catapults and some battering rams, heading to try to deal with this. Another group that's actually going up over to that side with screen, and then a final group again with a heavy screen. There's screen on the center as well, but a heavy screen in the left flank going after those primary walls over there. There's going to be some Tyrian catapult fire. That's life. You know, I want to knock down the walls as hard as I can and see what I can do. I looked up the rule. I can't find anything that indicates the troops on a collapsing wall get affected in this game. In some of the games in the, well, in Acre, I believe, and in Siege of Constantinople, it is a factor. But in this one, you're actually kind of, I don't know, the segmentation is stricter. They all have sort of this, are you bombarding or are you attacking option. So this has that as well. Well, the others do as well. But somehow this one feels a little bit more that the troops don't really matter until the assault somehow. I don't know. About halfway through the naval phase here. And you can see Macedonian Allied forces getting towards their target in the most part. But this is the easy target. And actually, I might have been able to get everything in on it. I forgot to fire these last turn. They could have fired. They're outside the range 1, 2, 3, 4 of the Tyrian defensive catapults. Let's do them first. Well, I'll wait. Since I waited already, I'll wait for them last. I've got some battering rams. Now, battering rams get to attack twice each, which is kind of an indication I've got 4 battering rams, enough to catch this whole section. Let's see what we get against this one. Battering rams are pretty good. I get a hit on that. I'm going to have to again come into range with some of these. And the second one's firing there. Well, slamming into it. I get a hit on that. I'm going to fire my catapults at this wall section that I can't reach with the battering rams, because I think this is going to be my key location to try to attack. So I'm going to fire them both at this one. And that's on this table, no modifier because it's a primary wall. And I get some really good hits. 4 points of catapult fire. Now the catapults have fired. I don't have a good way to mark that the battering rams fired once, but they're in place and there's damage. I can kind of mark them this way. Those catapults are useless now, and you know, I just want to make sure Tyre can't slip out of their harbor and do some horrible damage to me. And now we go to another Macedonian move, and then the Tyrians get to go next. And then we get to do bombardment again. So if I'm in range with more stuff, which I will be here at least, we'll get that. Obviously, it's important, and I did so, to stay out of range. I've still got to move these ships. Mainly to get Alexander, so he's got a command on all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, he'll have to slide down and command those when he's ready to. It's important to stay out of range of the Tyrian catapults, but they're only going to get one shot at one ship each turn, or each naval turn. So I'm only going to get to pick one of these to shoot at. Likewise, I only get to pick one of these to shoot at each time. That's going to be an issue. I've left something open though. I'm going to set sail with this thing and see if I can hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to ram that sucker and see if we can take a, that's the wrong way, take a catapult down. And now somewhere there's a ram table. Over here, I've got a trireme hitting a little bireme, which base hits on a 2 through 6, but I also have a leader who adds 3 to my ram chance, and there's that there's the catapults on board, which add another one. So I automatically ram it. No, actually they add it, yeah. So I roll a die to see what happens to that ship, because I'm getting a star result. And I get a 5. I have damaged the ship, and that wrecks the catapult. We'll put that over in the casualties. Now I've got to cover my boom or else they're going to come in and maybe shoot up in here or do some damage. Well, mainly they'd be able to take out my ship. So I make sure to cover the boom there. That would take now a 12-point attack. From one ship. I would only be able to attack from here using melee. That would be to get a 0 on it. Minimum attack they could possibly work is 10. The best I could do is, I think there's 6-point ships and a 3-point leader, which adds up not to 10. So there's no chance of getting past this ship at the boom. The only problem is I've just sacrificed this ship. The thought is maybe not. The Tyrians get to move again, so I get to turn around and get out of there. But I'm half movement, so I'll only get 3 movement points. That's barely enough to turn. He's pretty much hosed. All those triremes are going to hit him. Okay. I'm going to take care of the fire from all the Macedonian attacks, and there are a lot of them this turn. And then I'll come back for the Tyrian catapults after. And you can see some minor effects on this wall. This one we've almost taken down. We got a 5-pointer there, a 4-point here where the catapult had hit before. That's all that's there. Over here, we actually took down this secondary wall. Now that's definitely a possible place to land. These are 3s, not completely out of question. This is going to force the Tyrians into some really hard choices. They're going to probably be spending all their points on wall repair at this point. And that means less effort can be put into throwing rocks down. That's not too big a deal. But there is some advantage to being able to beach your ships in areas like this and then shift them into the breaches. It speeds up the whole attack, as it were. Alright, well, we move on to the 5th. Ah, no. I forgot about why I came back in the first place. Okay, so I have some catapults, and again, they only get 1 shot coming. Let's take this one. Well, I would like to hit this guy, but I'll go for the near guy, I guess. He's a trireme. I like killing triremes. And I roll a 5. That's going to damage him and thereby wreck the ram. So you can see why they are really a limited resource. I'm out of them. I can't build anymore. And all I got is these catapults left in reserve. Of course, ships are a limited resource too, but I can combine them. Let's go over here. I get a shot. I'd like to hit him. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't, but I can hit this guy. He didn't even have to attack. That's not going to do anything. And then over here, this catapult can't reach anything, and this one can't reach anything. Alright, so now we move to the Tyrians, try to get them out of the way and see what happens to this poor ship. He's doomed, basically. First of all, cluster here where both sides lost a ship to damage. Well, had a ship damaged. You can see the Tyrian ships aren't going anywhere. They're going to be stuck in combat and almost certainly sunk. Whether or not they can take a Macedonian ship down with them is a different matter. Another one. Over here, I've still got enough of a block on both of the ports that I've just used up my last reserve though out of there. That's all I've got left. Along the walls, the Tyrians weren't able to hurt the ship. You can see they're beginning to degrade this, at least this space, quite a bit. Over here we got a breach. I shifted the Cypriot ships out of the way. Oops. I shifted the Cypriot ships out of the way so that the artillery couldn't hit them, but they could still smack the walls pretty hard. You know, it's a matter of wherever the Tyrians put their artillery, I want to hit them where they ain't, basically, to quote Wee Willie. So I guess we got one more movement, and I'll shift some of these Tyrian ships so that they can all gang up on that, although they don't really need to. Now, what I can't do, I may shift some so they can't be attacked. What I can't do is I can't run away and leave a hull, because then the Tyrians could slip out. The problem, the Tyrians can turn and attack whichever group of ships they wish to. So I've got to be kind of careful with the geometry of how I set that up with the Macedonians to make sure that I get an optimal, maximal attack no matter what. Tyrians managed to take a Cypriot bireme out of the way. The biremes are kind of cool at this point, at least at full strength, because they have a faster movement. So I can shift the artillery into place a little quicker, maybe get a deeper penetration over to here. We had no problem hitting those, and certainly not these. But getting out here was kind of tough, and getting further behind the wall would be almost impossible. Anyway, that looks like it's the turn. All I have to do now is bring the fleet back, and figure out how I want to dispose or disposition it for next turn's bombardments, because I'm not ready to launch an attack. I've got one breach here, one breach here. This is just not sufficient. And of course the Tyrians are going to be spending their repair points. They're going to probably spend 6 points on dice and try to fix these walls. This is how these games always go. Everything in this whole boxed set over there is and Constantinople as well, is this kind of struggle between trying to damage the walls and the opponent trying to rebuild them. And eventually there's a final assault, but usually things are decided by that point, more or less. Usually you don't assault until you've broken the walls. The problem is they all have kind of a time limit on them. Historically, it's unlikely that this siege would have broken apart. Tyre probably would have fallen. But the time limits could have affected certain things. And also, it is possible that the Allies could defect from Macedonia. But I think that's highly unlikely. I think the real question is just how quickly can you do it in. Right, moving into the next one. This is turn 9 in Tyre. I'm allocating out my Tyrian construction. The wall construction. I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, I want to fix these 4 walls. It's harder to fix the level 6 breach though, but it's also not easy to fix the level 4 breaches particularly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allocate 2 to each of these level 4s. Leave the level 5 and the level 6 with 1 die. Now the level 5 is like a level 4 in terms of repairing. But basically I'm just trying to mitigate the effects of the widespread breaches, because here's the problem: if these big breaches are allowed, if a 6 is allowed to remain there, then I can extend that with attacks on other wall segments for the Macedonians. So I've got to try to repair some of those, but it's really a tough balance. There aren't enough points. I've only got 6 points to spend. I'm not throwing rocks anymore. That's too tough. The Macedonians incidentally chose a bombard phase, which I would be pretty sure they would. It becomes more worthwhile to try to fix the level 6 breaches, one, if you knew that the Macedonians were assaulting, but you don't know they're assaulting until turn 12. They may just continue to keep widening their breaches and increasing the damage they've done. Let's see where we are next. Yeah, we're on that construction and wall repair. So I actually didn't have to allocate that beforehand. I just had to allocate that all my points are going to wall repair. And then okay. Yeah, I went dancing and I'm a little out of it. I had like 3 beers on Friday, 3 on Saturday, but I'm just wiped out in terms of the physical effort involved. Not a lot of repairs. Only 1 success over here. Got that down from a 4 to a 3. Actually, there were 2 successes on that segment. But the rest of the walls are still where they were. And that's why the Macedonians want to hold off. Well, one reason. There's no real advantage to attacking early because you are going to keep breaking the walls as you go. The only real risk here is losing ships while you break the walls, because you can only transport so many troops. Anyway, I'll allocate my stuff. Oh, I forgot. I don't get any more catapults or battering rams, but I do get to keep rolling for the mole. That doesn't go anywhere. Alright. In terms of catapult positioning, I removed the one from here, which was protecting this stretch of wall. I deemed that's not that important a stretch. I may shift this one. See, he's only able to protect to here. Part of the problem is there's unprotected stuff here, but let's leave that alone. I want to keep one here. This area is very dangerous because it leads right into the city, which causes morale losses. Over here I've double covered. You can see I've got them here and here. I've also shifted ground unit to where I can fill in this breach anytime I need to, if the Macedonians load up with troops. I've decided to launch the fire ship. And I kind of cheated here. These guys shouldn't have been right up on the boom, because they always will have a chance to move into position. So I put the fire ship there. That's going to come out. Chances, my understanding is it can pretty much knock out one Macedonian ship. Well, it can ram Macedonian ships, and if it succeeds, but it's not particularly good, and I don't think I can put a leader on it. If it successfully rams Macedonian ships, it destroys them, which right now my goal is to try to knock out as many of the siege engine equipment as I can. I don't think I can deal with the archers if they show up here. Right now we're close enough, you know, that I could have one here, but it wouldn't do me any good until the assault. So there's no real reason for the tower to be built until the assault, or to be moved up there until the assault. In which case, my biggest goal right now is just cut down the effect that the bombardment abilities that the Macedonians have are going to take on me. And if I can knock out a ship or two extra, that's great. I lied. Reasonably, the fire ship can only attack once, no matter what. I've got an attack lined up against the Cypriot trireme here with a battering ram on it. The trireme officially attacks the fire ship officially attacks as a trireme, so I only need a 2 through 6 and I'll hit, because there's no leader or anything on board. And actually I have a bonus because it's carrying goods. So that's an automatic hit, and these are both destroyed along with the battering ram. And that's the best I can hope for. I screwed up with the Macedonians by letting that get up there. And now the question is, do I want to try to launch? No, you know. But as these walls decrease, I may need to launch my ships to try to protect, because then the harbor is no longer a weak spot anymore that I have to protect, right? Because if these walls are collapsed, I can sail to them just as easily. Or if these walls are collapsed, there's nothing protecting them, and just as there's nothing protecting the harbor. So it becomes moot to try to defend it. But right now, I do want to defend. And on the first round of actual bombardment, we've drilled another hole in this wall. Started damaging this. The catapult smacked that up a bit. The return fire from Tyre didn't help, or didn't do any damage. I've got one problem. I've got this battering ram by here that's gotten kind of lost behind with some of the others. I may not want to be in the zone of fire for longer than I possibly can, than I have to. So if I can't reach here by turn 5 with all the ships, I may end up only sending the 3 that are right up there into place, because otherwise I'll be taking too much fire. I could always use this guy and break down a wall here or something, but it doesn't mean anything there. Those are just the harbor walls, and they don't really prevent much of anything. Unless I bombard down some of the internal walls to the harbor. So if I drilled this out, I would then be able to use catapults over here and have an easier access through there, which maybe, you know. All right, I'll optimize attacks on this wall, and I was able to get up there with that one to here. This is turn 5 here of the impulses. I concentrated my attacks on this location because this catapult's over here. He can't quite reach this one, and this guy is not reachable by that one. So I'm trying to reduce the amount of total hits I can get. Now, as long as I've got a ship on this catapult, I'm kind of wasting my time, but I really want to knock that wall down. So, Cypriot ram over here was successfully destroyed. We got him over there. The others, no damage done. And now we're pushing into the final phase of this naval turn. And for the end of the phase, I actually had to move Cypriot naval leader over here to be able to shift the other ship out of range of that catapult. And we ended up smacking at these walls. We only got one more point of damage onto the catapult itself. Over here, everything's set. We've got 2 breached walls, a damaged one. This may be enough to launch an attack. The Tyranians are going to have to consider very hard how to defend all of this and start moving forces into place. And all those troops in the back don't really matter. They're going to move up, I guess, because yes, I could climb those walls, but the cost and effort to getting to beaching on there, and the fact that I can't actually sail there, I think in a full turn, well, this has more time. We're also we've got 1 breach up here that was already in existence. We've got 4 more points on that. So we're beginning to see some cracks in the defenses. It doesn't feel like enough yet. However, you know, I lost, well, 1 ship doesn't count because it's against the fire ship, but I lost a ship in the attacks, and that's probably pretty much par for the course, just losing a ship or 2 a turn. So you don't want to lose too many because you can't carry your troops anymore if you lose too much of that. In turn 9, you can see the mole continues to move forward. It's not possible for it to reach. It can go 1 hex further with each. We've only got 2 more turns left maximum. But it can provide some fire support, and given that I've got breaches in that area, it's actually of some importance to be able to try to pick off defenders while the boats carry the troops there. Not launching an assault yet, though, but you'll see the Tyrians have started slipping their militia off the back end of the board. It's not serving any purpose back there. That's really hard to assault from that direction. Of course, if it's empty, maybe the Macedonian ships will go that way, but there's some warning to that. And throughout the play of those phases, in the assault phase, I can shift them back up if need be. What's really in danger right now is this hole here where I'm moving the Marines down to fill. Maybe this gap here where the Royal Guard's kind of playing with that and that port. Basically, I had the Marines and the Guards in the ports. And then I've got the militia over here on the far end, which is actually probably where the landing is going to be. But I don't want to strip things that are decent from being able to defend the city. Point out as I move forward on the approach, the Tyranians have consolidated their catapults in order to cover the areas where the battering rams have been doing a lot of damage. The basic idea here is to try to sink something if they're going to make that run again. And they are making it again. There's going to be 1 catapult firing here. This guy's over on the corner. I got 2 covering this whole area. 1, 2, 3, 4. I couldn't cover this space from an attack here, so I've only got 1 battering ram hitting there. Well, I mean, I could have, but had I done so, it would open up maybe other spaces or something, or open this area up to easier access. The problem is the easiest access is right where it's most damaging, on the city wall, right going into the city. The little catapult squadron, I'm not sure where it's going yet. It might target in that area, but it also might be interested in getting further reduction on this so that I can land more forces there. That's a real risk for Tyre. And then yes, I'm sending my rams here. That's actually probably one of the least valuable places I could attack, but I want to be able to land a lot of troops kind of at once. It might not be valuable though to have disparate openings available in particular. What I'm really feeling a lack of is catapults at this point. I built so many rams that I feel like I have to kind of use them. Although I have the potential of breaching this with a catapult. Over here, I'd like to get an opening, just as a place to get more troops into play. But the truth is, once you land enough troops, the Tyrians have to fall back to the city. Now, if you land them in this city, the Tyrians are just in trouble. Of course, you still have to fight your way to take this, but that should be fairly easy compared to fighting within the city. Although the city doesn't give any particular defensive advantage. But it's got that extra layer of walls around it, which makes it particularly appealing to make a breakthrough right at the city and capture it early. At the end of this, we got 2 holes down here going into the city itself. Those are very appealing. Over here, 2 holes right in the front. I made an attack against this. I don't think it does me any good, but I had nowhere else to go except by risking my ship hitting that. And the 3rd hole would have been nice there, but 2 catapults firing at me is a bit much. And then over here, I didn't lose any ships. I've got a hole there. That's a 5-pointer. There's a lot of damage over on that side. I don't know if it's worth continuing to attack it or to just declare my assault. I have to think about that a little. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to go with another bombardment turn this turn. But I did come back for one reason. I found in the rules, well, where I had written in a note, which obviously comes from the agenda. I've done a good job of transcribing it into the rules. The ports actually do have a 0 grounding factor, which means you can throw rocks in them and make them harder to cope with. What I can't find is whether I can come back and ferry troops from the mainland back to Tyre. That makes a big difference, because essentially my navy is completely free to operate. I'm going to have to look into that some more, but right now I don't like this breach here. I don't like having the hole here. I don't like fighting to widen it particularly, but it looks like my only option. I've got this little hole here. That's going to get clogged pretty quickly. I've got a little hole here. That's going to get clogged pretty quickly. I'm not being allowed in the harbors. So there really isn't much other choice. You can't laterally move along the beaches, so I couldn't, like, land a guy here or down here and then run him down to sneak in the back door. That's not allowed. The beaches are considered immovable. You can only transit from the beach to a wall and vice versa. So just getting my mass of troops in, I feel like I need to gain this. Now, if the Tyrians came out and opened up the harbor to me, that would be fantastic, but I don't think that's going to happen. So, as we shift here into turn 11, the Tyrians have actually completely abandoned their defense here. They're not putting any artillery up there anymore. There's still a couple of walls to be damaged, but they've devoted 2 over here, 1 over here, and 1 over here. That gives them fair coverage in this area. There's some danger that maybe some catapults could try to breach here and create some additional opportunity for a landing there. But this is the last turn of bombardment. That's guaranteed. We only have 1 more turn left in the game. There's not going to be any more bombardment in that turn. So I've got to kind of devote to where I can do the damage. And I don't have a lot of catapults. I have 4 down here and a couple here. I could probably widen these holes. I don't really think it's terribly worth trying to launch too much of an attack. More catapults in here might be of value. I can use a ram against this space. But the problem with that is I'm going to get my rams attacked no matter what by these Tyrian catapults here if I choose to launch the rams. So it's kind of if I send the rams that way, I might as well just try to do this with a catapult. The problem, of course, is the catapults are less effective. Only 1 shot on this table as opposed to 2 shots on this table, and that's a big deal. All right, we got our breaches. 1, 2, 3. This one's not. This one's not. And I can actually remove the undamaged because there's not going to be another bombardment stage. This one's a breach. And then over here we've got this whole line here, which means I've got some potential to land on some rocky water. I fired a lot of catapults at this one. Not enough to do anything significant. There was really nowhere else to go. And then I got a couple of breaches back here. I'm going to pull the unused damage markers off the board just to help me visualize as I clean up the whole situation. Next turn, though, is completely different. And it's going to be a pretty... Oh, we lost a trireme to the fire there. It's going to be a completely different turn. Different from anything we've seen in the game. Basically, it consists of this whole little mini game where we're actually going to invade the island. And unlike some of the games in this scenario, in this set, in particular Constantinople definitely, and I think Acre, breaching the city in those games is enough to win. In this game, you actually have to fight it out on board the city. The city's not going to surrender very easily. You have to capture the 2 key hexes in order to do it. Just getting troops inside the city isn't going to do it. And just getting troops inside the city is actually probably pretty damn easy. Let us see where we get with all of this. I'm going to load this one up because the next part of the game is so different that I don't really want to mix it with this video. I feel like it's going to be a long video in and of itself.